Aloha, everyone. I'm Sandy Pfund. I'm the Director of the Department of Land Management. Thank you, Jonah, for the introduction. Um, just as a couple comments, the Mayor Caldwell administration had wanted to look at fulfilling gaps at the department, at the city, in areas that they found were not addressing key issues that were coming forward at the city, particularly homeless or people at risk of homeless. And so we were initially employed to work under the Office of Strategic Development, which is looking to do transactional and city housing properties, which had been long neglected at the city because of the abolishment of the housing department at the city way back in the 1990s. So it was started to looking at how could we create a department that could address critical needs for affordable housing, but also different utilization of city property for other purposes as well. And that's how, as Jonah mentioned, the Department of Land Management got formed. The City Council has been very supportive of homeless issues and affordable housing issues, and have actually appropriated a lot of money to the Department of Land Management to try to make a big push to increase the housing inventory. Back in the early days of 2016 or so, the council appropriated $64 million toward homeless housing and affordable housing. And in the 2017 and on, the council added additional $100 million for affordable housing with preference in transit-oriented development areas, and additional $10 million for affordable housing. The Department of Land Management had the following strategy in terms of how do we best increase the inventory and best utilize lands for housing. What we did was we focused on acquiring vacant buildings that could be turnkey, that it could be just totally acquired and then we would be able to rent immediately, or they were properties that we could renovate for a quick inventory and then rent out. So we were not looking for huge development projects of the city. We felt large developments should be with the private sector partnerships. But we also looked at smaller projects in the community. We wanted to integrate our affordable housing and low-income housing into communities for well-balanced, improvements to the community. We had preferences for projects near the rail stations to ensure that we preserve affordable housing sites near our future rail. As rail matures, we see that in other cities, the land values around the rail stations increase tremendously, and the housing market tends to get into the more luxury side or higher end as retail and housing opportunities start to center around the rail. And so in order to be sure that we can preserve a well-balanced community, we wanted to go in and acquire key pieces of property that are near the rail stations and preserve them for affordable rentals. Also, the mayor in 2017 had a State of City address where he made affordable housing one of his priorities. And what he wanted us to do was look at our own city properties and see if there are advantages or abilities for us to leverage our city lands and create more housing. We also wanted to look at innovating housing solutions. So we looked at container housing, modular housing, conversion of commercial properties, and then we also focused on special needs groups such as seniors. We even have a project that we focused on single parent households. We looked at a property for domestic violence and drug treatment. And lately, within the last year, we focused on housing for COVID-19 isolation and quarantine. So as we move on now, I'd like to show you some of the projects that we have done at the city in concert with these strategies that we had put together. Okay, Joe, the next slide. Let's start with some of our RFPs for development. As we mentioned, we had a look at all of our city lands and where we had vacant property that we could just utilize for housing. So one of the areas we looked at is Kapolei, which we call our lots Kapolei 6 and 7. That's identified as the yellow area in the slide. The city a while back had acquired all of the parcels that you see on the slide in gray. And we are taking the first two parcels of lots 6 and 7, and we issued a request for proposals to private developers in December of 2018 for affordable housing. We had a selection committee, and the Kobayashi Group was selected as the developer for the property. So, they will bring in approximately 404 units. The city will provide our equity as a lease of 75 years for $1, and in return, the developer will acquire the lease the property, develop it, and then maintain the affordable housing for the term of the lease. If you notice on this map, there's a curvilinear line going through some of the lower grayed out parcels. That is the extension of the rail line in the future. It's not part of the 20-mile our rail station plan right now, but as we look way into the future, the rail will be coming through this Kapolei area. And so we feel that putting this housing right next to future rail would be a really good thing to ensure we've got affordable housing for everyone near rail station. Next slide. Next slide, Jonah. This is our conceptual design for the Kapolei 6 and 7. We have very low-rise units along Kapolei Parkway, and we'll have studios, 1, 2, 3, 4-bedroom units for a total of 404 units. Next slide. Here's a rendering of our, go back one, please. This is a rendering along Kapolei Parkway. And as you can see, it's a real walkable community type feel. It'll be rented for persons at 60% AMI or less, with a small number of the units at 30% area median income. And the developer has chosen to go at the 60% AMI or less because they can utilize the State of Hawaii Housing Finance and Development Corporation financing packages, which is the low-income housing tax credits, the rental housing revolving fund, and other equity forms of financing that make these kinds of projects workable from a development standpoint. Next slide. The other area that the city owns is what we call the IWILEI sugar mill site. It is near the IWILEI library and is shown in the outline here. We issued a request for proposals in August 2018, and the selection committee picked EAH Housing, an affordable housing builder, as the winning awarded developer for the project. This will be a senior housing project for approximately 140 units and had been planned by the city for a long time, but we went through a period of no real development after the housing department went down. So we've resurrected this and are pushing this one forward for housing. Next slide. This is the conceptual plan for the IWILEI sugar mill housing. We have community areas both for public private use and also totally private for the clients and residents there. This again will be 60% area median income and below. We really like the EH design. They're going to include some community programs for seniors in the area. There's a dog park and other amenities. And we are, as of actually tomorrow, going in with some 201H exemption requests and hope to start construction late next year. Next slide. Here's some renderings. It's a low-rise, senior project with EAH's experience on making sure that they're senior friendly with community rooms and services. Next slide. Here's some unit renderings, standard floor plans. we have 2 bedrooms and 1 bedroom units and a studio as well. Next slide. Another project that is a request for proposal project is our LOCH senior residences. This is in Chinatown. Currently, it looks like the picture on the left. It's on River Street, and it was the old Foster Gardens project or the Gillian building. I don't know if you remember Uptown Cafe and Hanagasa Inn, and now it's where the project is. Developer is LOCH Senior Development, LLC, and it will be 155 senior housing units at 60% AMI below, with some of the units at 30% to meet the requirements of the LIHTC low income housing tax credit financing programs. There'll be a small community center and very well situated. It is about 2 blocks away from the Chinatown rail station. Next slide. We recently also worked on a project called Verona Village. This is out in Eva, and the city, under the old housing department back in the 90s, had purchased all of the lands from the Oahu Sugar Company and started a project called Eva Revitalization. And some of the areas were completed. There were Tenny Village, Fernandez Village. All of these were villages of plantation workers that supported Oahu Sugar. And when Oahu Sugar went down and closed for business, these plantation workers were of great concern whether they would be able to continue housing in the area. And so the city at the time took on the responsibility and the obligation to ensure that the plantation workers would have a decent home to live in and to also have opportunities for sale housing. Although some of the other villages under the Eva Revitalization Plan got completed, Verona Village was identified as one of the last villages to be done. And before it could be worked on, the housing department had closed. And so all these years, fast forward to 2020, it has kind of sit in this kind of old plantation style for all these years. And the city has an obligation to take care of them and also, to ensure that the original tenants of record have a opportunity to buy their units, in perpetuity. So we issued an RFP in February 2017, and the highest scoring developer was Savio Hawaii Habitat LLC. So Hawaii Habitat, I'm sure you all know, does sweat equity type development, and we very simple homes, but keeping the cost down. Each tenant of record will be able to acquire their particular unit area for $100,000. But any additions that they want to put to their house, like if they want to redo their house or get a new one, they would add the cost of that construction onto the $100,000. If it was a brand new unit in this Verona Village, we estimate the cost might be about $350,000. It's a for sale project. And so after the initial tenants of record are helped and their families and their spouses are helped, then there's a pecking order or a priority order in which others may be able to get an opportunity to acquire a unit here at Verona Village. This is in Eva, on Kapolei Parkway, very close to the new Kamakani, I think, shopping center. Next slide. Another project that was never sort of fully completed from the old housing department was what we call our West LOCH family housing. On the slide to the left is the empty project site. It's on Renton Road at Fort Weaver. And the area in the map as shown on the right is the outlined area where this project will be. And Mauka of it is a development, which is what we call our West LOCH Elderly Village project, which was constructed during the housing department days. So this piece was supposed to have been another phase of development that never did get completed. So under Mayor Caldwell's 2017 plan to utilize our city properties, we have resurrected an RFP for this site to see if we can put up housing. We issued the RFP in May 2019, and we selected Komohale LP. There'll be approximately 123 units. Again, they will like to utilize the HHFDC financing, the LIHTC and rental housing revolving funds. So they will be pricing their units at 60% AMI and below, and 30% AMI for some of the units. And I might mention all of the projects except for Verona Village I talked about earlier are rental housing projects. So we're trying to increase rental housing opportunities, in the city. Okay, next slide. Next slide, Jonah. Okay. The next project that we're working on is called West Loch Modular Housing, and this is on the other side of the West Loch Family Project. So in the upper right corner, you see the empty lot. In the far right, that was the West Loch Family. We've got West Loch Elderly Village in the middle, and on the other side is the project called the West Loch Modular Housing. This is a very interesting project. It is going to be modular units that are going to be stacked up into a 3-story building with actually it's now 58 units. And what we did was there was a city council resolution talking about let's look at innovative ways to bring in housing quickly and at very good cost, and let's explore modular housing as a way to meet the goal. And so my staff, myself, and our architects and engineer consultants went up to Vancouver, Canada, because they were experiencing huge homeless crisis in their city, and they were looking for ways to increase housing in a very quick way. And so they embraced a modular housing as a way to see if they could bring out the units in a quick manner. The project you're seeing in these pictures are the actual buildings that were done in Vancouver, utilizing modular design. So after our visit, we saw many of these being put up in various parts of the city and really making a dent in their homeless crisis issues. So we selected the same developed modular builder, which is Horizon North, and they built all these components and then stacked them. They did it in their a factory in Kamloops, Canada, which is even north of Vancouver. And they build these modules on site, and then they'll be shipping them. So in fact, we're very excited because the modules for our West Loch Modular project have left Kamloops by truck, and they will be on the port of Vancouver in about 2 weeks. And from there, it'll be shipped to Hawaii and on Oahu, and be arriving about mid-December this year. And then once it's all loaded onto our adjacent property site, we will have cranes and we will start stacking them and create a 58-unit 3-story building like this. We will include an office space, and there will be commercial units, a commercial like dining room area, a commercial kitchen, some counseling rooms for use by the residents here. In Vancouver, this is for intake of homeless or at risk of homeless, and the kitchen served them food and created a very nice community setting within neighborhoods in parts of Vancouver. Next slide. So in summary of all of our RFP projects, adding them all up, it will total 1,001 new units coming onto our inventory shortly. So we're very excited to bring this on and to help reduce our at-need and affordable housing needs. Next slide. As I mentioned, some of our own construction projects or acquisition projects, what we call our DLM, Department of Land Management Development projects, were much smaller scale. We feel that big developments that we just looked at should be best left a lot with the private sector, public-private partnerships. but to the extent that the city could also develop, we did do some projects, and I'll show you some of those. Next slide. Okay, one of our projects that we did is our CITRON Street project, and this was an old international dormitory property where they were having international students from Japan primarily come to study here, and the owner of the school, I guess, decided to close down, and the property became vacant. And so this is one of the properties that we purchased and created 30 single room occupancy units. And it is actually already completed and occupied. We only have about 1 or 2 units available left. It's individual rooms, but each floor has 2 bathrooms, full bathroom suites, where you have your own shower, toilet, sink, and they share it by floor, as well as some extra bathrooms and a community center on the bottom floor of the building. Each unit comes with a small refrigerator and a small sink. And if you want and microwaves are available. And if you want to fully cook, create a meal, you can go to the community center on the ground floor that has, the full kitchen and a lounge area that you can cook and eat in the dining room. This project is something that we really wanted to focus on single parent households, whether it was a single mom with their children or a single dad with their children, and wanted to see how this would help very low income. Our rents here are about $625 a month, up to $700 a month per room. And we were very happy to work. Our property manager has worked with a lot of the service providers in the area. I think we have some referrals from Salvation Army, Family Promise, and others who have referred clients here. And we've had some really nice stories. Like, we found a mother living in a car with an infant, and she was able to get help and use one of our rooms. And we found a senior woman at the IHS shelter, and she was able to get a room here as well. We were worried a bit about sharing bathrooms, but with good management, it has worked out really well, and we have no problems in that situation. And we'd like to see more of these being built, because we can get, as a single room occupancy unit, rents down to that $625, $700 level, which is what we consider truly affordable housing. Next slide. Here's some pictures that we called it Mohalamai. And this is on the left, the community room on the ground floor, where you can cook and utilize the services there. And on the right is a sample room. So you can see there's a small sink and a little mini fridge. And it's a little closet. It's perfect for single parent with a small child, or even in a elementary school or a teenage child. We picked this site as ideal for this, as it's right next to the city's park and recreation area, and also a block away from an elementary school. Next slide. This is our Young Street project, 30 studio units. It is completed. And this was a building that a developer had put up as using for commercial space, and then completed the shell of the building and then stopped. So it was just empty inside. So we purchased it and we built individual renovation within the unit floors. There's 3 floors of units. And this is a senior housing project. And our Department of Community Services has a small office there with the Elderly Affairs Division to also assist and provide some services. And we were able to fill this one up quite quickly. The rents, I believe, are at $800 per unit. So we have about 20 units that are for the lower income, and a few of the market units, but they're about $800 to $900 rent. Yeah, fully occupied at this time. Next slide. Here's some pictures of the units On the left is a typical unit. So this one has a full kitchen and a full bathroom. We have ADA units as well. And on the right, you see sort of a recreation area for the residents on the second floor. We call this building Kumuvai. Next slide. Another project we're working on right now is on IWILEI Road. And what we're building here is a resource center, which we would like to have a dining facility and a commercial kitchen of a pretty large scale. And we would like to utilize that for homeless services. And then we also are building 27 studio units on the left side. So where you see the art mural on the wall, those are the 27 apartment units, studios. And on the right side, the lower level is the resource center. And we're attracted to buy this property because of its co-location to the Punavai Rest Stop, which is the hygiene center that the city built. And the corner on the other side, you see the map, is our former IWILEI fire station, where we have some medical services going on. And the property right in the middle, we are about to acquire that one as well. So by the time we're done, we're going to control this block. And so for the future redevelopment opportunities for the city, we see great advantage for that. And to the right, it's a little off this screen, but the rail station, the IWILEI rail station, is about a block away from the site. We are going to finish the resource center probably at the end of the year, and the studio units about April, May of next year. And so everything will be available for use or for rent of the studios, and we're going to get a vendor to create meals and support services for homeless in the resource center, probably spring to summer of next year. Okay, next slide. Here's a picture of the concept design. Yeah, the homeless resource center will have meals at 3 times a day. We've got provision centers for used clothing and sanitary hygiene supplies, counseling offices, classrooms, commercial kitchen. And if you see on the Malka part of this picture is the commercial kitchen. The little circles is the dining room, and along the side of that you see all of the counseling rooms there. And on the Makai side of the thing of this picture, on a mezzanine, we will have offices. Individual residential units for up to 6 or 7 people to live there, and these will be what we consider our workforce housing people, and they will be housed there as staff for the kitchen and the dining room. So they'll be there 24/7, and we'll be training them in culinary arts, with the vendor there to teach them skills, but also to help, watch over our project. And we want to utilize this to make social connections, social connectivity, fellowship, and through gaining their trust through meals, maybe ability to work with them to provide options for them to move into housing. On the left side is of the property is on Sumner Street will be the 27 unit studios that will be connected, but a separate project from our resource center. Next slide. Here's a typical unit. So if you see where it says supportive housing, that's the different bedrooms and a dining area, living area for our workforce housing group for the resource center. And the blue side is the studio units that we're building. On the right is a sample picture of what that studio will look like. Very simple kitchen facility and living area. Next slide. 27 units, 50% AMI lower. We purchased this building. It's on Ka'ahi Street. It was a former federal detention center. It's right on the other side of the women's IHS men's shelter. And we bought it. We're very attracted to it because it was vacant because the prison program had moved out or was terminated there. It has offices on the bottom and units on the second and third floor. Next slide. What was attractive of this project, it's a quarter-mile from the IWILEI rail station, 1 block from the bus line. And our plan is still to relocate the Sand Island Drug Treatment Center. They serve a lot of our drug treatment services and other addictions. They're currently at the Sand Island wastewater treatment plant with city property. They were there from a long time ago, and now the wastewater plant needs to expand to meet our EPA consent decree requirements for sewer. And so we needed to move this drug treatment center out from that area and started to look for an applicable or good property to relocate them. And the Ka'ahi Street property was extremely well suited for it, because of its nature as a federal detention. I guess it's a federal prison program that once people who are in federal prison were ready to be released, they would go to this Ka'ahi Street property and live there and learn and relearn skills to go back into the community, as well as reconnect with family, so that when they integrated back into the community, they would be in a much better prepared for that. So the facility is federally designed, and it meets federal requirements, and is a very secure site. So with lots of security systems on the building. It has 26 residential units on the second and third floors. We have 2 1-bedrooms, 6 2-bedroom, 18 2-bedrooms with den, which is kind of like a 3-bedroom unit. We were just about to issue our contracts to the Sand Island Drug Treatment to relocate when COVID-19 hit. And when that happened, it was a perfect building for isolation and quarantine for COVID patients who were homeless or at risk of homeless. And so we repurposed the building. We put the Sand Island Drug Treatment Center on hold. And right now, since March of this year, it has been the primary isolation quarantine center for anyone in the homeless population that have been affected by COVID. The map on the right will show you where it's located in relation to our rail transit line. As you can see, it's right there. The line actually will be coming right past this building, and to the station. So we feel that it's a good multimodal transportation system right by this property, for as people in the drug treatment program start to rehabilitate and move out, they've got opportunities much easier to get to jobs and to doctor appointments and places they need to go, versus out in Sand Island. So we look forward to the eventual return of the building for this use, but for now it's for COVID. Next slide. We also bought this property. It's we call it the old Delight Bakery site. This is in Kalihi, and it's right next door to the Kalihi rail station. Next slide. Okay. We found this to be an extremely strategic property for us to acquire. On the Dillingham side is where the bakery was, and you can see the Kalihi rail station is in the uncolored block to the right of it. The bakery had actually a factory that was producing the baked goods, and that was on 1907 Uluwini Street. And the buildings are connected. So we acquired the Dillingham building and the Uluwini building. And we would like to preserve this for connectivity to this Kalihi rail station, but also to preserve and place affordable housing on the top. So we will be working with developers to ensure that we've got affordable rentals right next to the rail station. Next slide. Again, here's a picture of our rail station to the property. As you can see, a picture on the right is the conceptual design of the rail station and how we can work with this to connect up the exits and the entryways to the station to our building. And we're very excited about creating something that will be a great place for affordable housing rentals for people to use. And I was telling Jonah, we found out as we were planning this that Kalihi Station is the highest ridership for buses in all the city. So we've got the most largest number of bus riders in the Kalihi area. And so we see great synergy with creating multimodal with rail. Next slide. We purchased this building on McCully Street. It's a small 10-unit. We have two bedroom and the rest are 1-bedroom units. Reason we purchased this, it's right on McCully near, very close to getting into Waikiki. And a developer had bought it. I think they kicked out all the people that were in there, and then he totally renovated it and was going to rent it to very high market rates. And so we found it just before, while he was renovating it, but before he started renting market rates. So it was totally, it was in very bad condition. And so he had renovated it. Picture on the left shows the totally renovated kitchen area. It's an old building, so there are very large units with lanais. And so we really wanted to focus on families. This building is also less than a block away from the CITRON project that we showed you. So we could get efficiencies in property management by putting this building with the CITRON building property manager, thereby not needing an office or any kind of space for people in the McCully building. So yeah, it's, as soon as we acquired it, because it was ready to go, we're fully occupied at this time. Next slide. Okay, one of our latest acquisitions is the Harbor Arms Hotel property, and this is in Aiea across Pearl Ridge shopping mall. It's right across the kind of Makai of the Watercress Farm area. There were 30 fully furnished 1- and 2-bedroom units. There's a community laundry facility, barbecue area, a property manager office, which served as your hotel lobby, basically. Old, but very well maintained, and we bought it with all the furniture that came with it. Not real brand new, but very usable. Full kitchens and quite large units as well. And this would be what we call a turnkey project that we can go right into renting them out to affordable rentals. However, just before we're ready to do that, we also are using this for isolation quarantine for COVID for the next, to the end of the year, focusing particularly on Pacific Islander segment of our community where if they need ISO quarantine, these are units that are more family oriented for the larger families and are real conducive to open air lobbies and so forth for COVID quarantine. So until we get over this, but eventually it will be rental housing. Okay, next slide. Housing portfolio. So before DLM got into buying these properties and renovating them and working on RFPs, we had an existing portfolio. And I'll just go real quickly through some of those projects that have already existed when at the city. Next slide. Well, this one is something we worked, a lot of hands helped on this one, but when we first started back in 2015 or 2016, we had huge homeless crisis going on. And so we needed an intake facility immediately to house homeless clients. And so we created these shelters out at Sand Island with containers. These are shipping containers converted to units. And there are 74 total units, very small. There are no, and then we created a little city here. We created a self-contained sewer system because there was no municipal sewer lines out there. And so we have a bathroom array there to serve the facility. And then it's an interesting system where you have the black water, which is number 2, and the gray water, which is water from the showers and the sinks, which make up of sewage waste. It makes up more like 70% of the sewage waste is gray water, showers and sinks, and the black water is the toilet sewage. So we separate out the sewage with black water and gray water, and we take the gray water and we created a garden to water that garden for use of that water, thereby reducing the amount of sewage flow from the project to more manageable levels that can be easily disposed. So what you're seeing on this slide is the actual bathroom and the sewage treatment facility. And we wanted to explore this type of development because maybe we can do this in other areas, where there's no municipal sewer lines. That is usually the biggest restriction on us able to put up these types of intake and transitional type housing units, the lack of infrastructure. So this was sort of a science project that we wanted to work on to see, can we create a totally workable contained project. This one is very popular. It's always full, and we always have clients coming in. IHS runs this project for the city. Next slide. These are some of the older projects that were already in the inventory. We have Bachelor's Quarters and EVA. This part of the old EVA Village revitalization. We took over these units. You see the AMI there, and Kanoa Apartments. This was already existing. This is in Kalihi, a small project. Next slide. Foster Gardens, this is on River Street, which is the site that will be demolished for the new Hale-Waiʻolu 155-unit senior housing. Winston Hale, we had an existing project there, 60% AMI with some Section 8 tenant voucher and Housing First. We created some micro units. There are 8 of them with the picture that you're seeing there. Frontage of that Winston project where it was just totally underutilized, and when it's dark and empty, it invites more crime and everything going on. So we redid the whole section and created 8 micro units there for rents. I think we're renting about $800 per studio there. Next slide. Manoa Gardens is a senior housing, and it's been there for some time, as well as Kulananani, which is in Kaneohe. So next slide. Westlake Apartments is in Salt Lake. It's a Section 8 project-based project. So, and we have Chinatown Gateway. We have a mix of income limits there, and we also recently redid the commercial components in that building. So now we have the downtown Satellite City Hall. And on the second floor, we created an art space for art classes and art exhibitions that has been very successful, and for the art community to have somewhere, and uplifts this building greatly. Next slide. Chinatown Manor was an existing project, as well as our Marin Towers. Next slide. Westlock Elderly is existing project. That's the one that I was showing you on the Westlock projects. It's right in the middle of the 2 sites that we're developing additional phases. We purchased Veritania Hale. This is across the street from Central Union Church, 50% AMI. It was another situation where a developer had gutted it, kind of evicted everyone who was living there, who were very affordable tenants, and before he put it back on the market as market units, we acquired it, and so we have replaced, allowed for tenants at 50% AMI. They're mostly 1-bedroom and a few 2-bedroom units. Next slide. P.E. Coy Street. This is a property we bought and renovated. It was a former school buildings on Pi'ikoi and Hassinger Street. And what happened here was the school was for autistic children, and I guess they lost their funding with the state. Property became vacant. So we purchased it and put 1, 2, 3-bedroom units, 42 units, and renting at 50% AMI. It's quite successful. We have usually full, close to full, if not full occupancy. Halona Road, this was a city property that was overgrown for years. It's just small, it's like 5,000 square feet, but when we wanted to explore the use of modular component housing, we thought, okay, let's do a test case and utilize our city empty property and go ahead and try a modular project. So these are like modulars that were built in a factory and then brought in and put down on the site. There are 3 of them, renting at 60% AMI, and it's always full. It's up in Waianae. Next slide. Our Kauhali Kamaili, we took the modular idea one step further and got a little more complicated on our design. So you see there, these are the same type of units, modulars, where we have some that are 1 and 2s, and we have doors that shut. So like you could, if you had a big family, we noticed in demographics in Waianae that we have more larger families than in town. We were able to contract and expand these units. So if a big family came in, we can expand and they can use both components of both sides of the building. And if they're at the time they're smaller units, then we would shut the door and we would have 2 separate facilities, a 2-bedroom and a 1-bedroom. This is right across the Waianae Old Harbor and Waianae High School. It was an overgrown lot that Waianae High School was always worried about because the kids would go over there and hang out and fight and do all kinds of things. And so we purchased the building for we purchased the vacant property for $300,000 and put up this modular project, and it is quite full all the time as well. It's very decent housing for people, you know, in the area. In a road, this is managed by our Department of Community Services, but we acquired it turnkey, 33 units in Waikiki, 60% AMI. Next slide. Harbor Village, this was already in existence with the housing department. It's right on Nimitz and River, affordable housing project. Next slide.
Sorry, Director Pfund. Sorry to interrupt. I just wanted to make sure that we were okay on time now. We are heading up to the bottom of the hour. And I know you have just a handful left, but is there any way that we can go through certain slides before the end and leave time for Q&A?
Yeah, I think in the next 2 minutes I can finish up everything.
Okay.
So let's finish it through. Next slide. Okay, one of the interesting things about Harbor Village is it's right next to Chinatown Rail Station. So we had the University of Hawaii Architecture School look at how we can create synergies for this project in the future. Next slide. And this is what they came up with, more walkable community in the area. Next slide. Thought of connections from the Chinatown Rail Station into the 2nd floor areas, and creating, you know, a lot of use for our increasing attractiveness of that station. Next slide. This is our summary and my final slide. So just to show you, on the left are the properties that we already had, and our total is basically, I think, is there another slide after this one? No?
No, no, Director. This is the final slide.
Okay. I had actually a different slide that didn't get into it, but what I wanted to say that, let me look at my document. When DLM started, there were 1,180 units that were existing. And through all of the projects I showed you, we added 1,472 units in the last 5 years to the housing inventory. And so that's it. Thank you so much for listening to my presentation. I guess there's a short Q&A, but if we don't have time to answer everybody, we have our email. Yeah, Jonah?
Yes, that's right, Director. So thank you so much for all of that. We are going to be starting with the Q&A section, but if anybody has any questions, I will put it in the chat right now. But you can contact Sandra, I mean, Director Sandra Pfund over at Land Management at Honolulu.gov. It will be right now into the chat. We do have questions from the top of the hour. Let me see here. The first question was, will there be similar developments for the windward side of the island?
Windward side of the island. Well, we're already always looking for property, and if there is something that's available that meets, the strategies we're looking at. As you know, we're changing out right now. Mayor Caldwell is at his end of his term, and we'll have our new mayor-elect, Rick Belangiardi, and I'm not sure what the new goals are for the next administration, but certainly if it is to get property, I'm sure we'll go into the windward side. And I wanted to really make sure you all understood. I mean, many of you might be service providers or people that work with people in need. We really wanted to show these because we do have openings from time to time. So we welcome you to give us project referrals, of clients that you might have that are in need. And if we have units available, we'd certainly like to work with you to help them. So just email our land management at honolulu.gov and we can start a conversation on that.
Okay, thank you. The next one was a short one. If you could elaborate, what is the acronym for RFP?
I'm sorry, I couldn't hear that.
Oh, the acronym for RFP.
Oh, RFP means request for proposal. So we put out a criteria of what we would want from developers, and it's a request for proposal. Yeah.
Sorry, let me scroll right through again. The next one was that somebody had missed the slide about the Kapolei 6 and 7 division. What rentals are for purchase? Or sorry, not purchase, but for, yes, what rentals are for purchase?
Wait, Kapolei 6 and 7 would be a rental housing project?
Oh, rental housing.
Mm-hmm.
Don Thomas asked what is the rent for CITRON, and I believe that they're asking about if there's any available places right now for any of those rents that are coming up.
Which project?
The CITRON.
CITRON, we have like 1 or 2 units available, 625 to 700 per month. I think our time is up, and I think the next modules or information is starting. If there are questions or information on chat, I will look at that, and if it's a question, if there's an email or phone number, we'll try to get back to you on it. Yeah.
Yes. Okay. Thank you everybody again for coming in. We really appreciate your time. Just a reminder that when you do come, if you decide to go back into the conference sessions, please refer back to the Mayor's Office of Housing website in order to view the rest of the sessions that are currently going on. So thank you again for everybody coming in, and thank you, Director Pfund, again for making time.
Okay. Thanks everybody.
Bye.
Bye.
Thank you.